The young man walks confidently through the bustling city streets, his eyes scanning the sky, hopeful for what's to come. He's just found the perfect building, modern, clean, and in the heart of the city. He's been looking for months, and finally, today, it feels like his dream apartment is within reach. As he steps inside the building, his heart races with excitement. He walks up to the landlord's desk, a middle-aged man with a slight frown, who looks him up and down without a hint of warmth. The young man smiles, ready to ask about availability, but before he can even open his mouth, the landlord speaks, his voice cold and dismissive. "Landlord, sorry, no apartments available." The young man pauses, his excitement quickly turning to confusion. He tries again, more hopeful this time. "Young man, excuse me, I just saw a listing online. Are you sure?" The landlord doesn't even look up from his paperwork, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. "Landlord, I said no apartments." The young man feels a knot tighten in his stomach. The words don't make sense, but something about the landlord's tone, the way he's being treated, feels off, and his mind races, but he stays calm. "Young man, are you sure? Landlord interrupting, "Not interested. Move along." The young man stands there for a moment, stunned. The excitement he had moments ago vanishes, replaced by a cold, creeping sense of rejection. His face falls as he walks out of the building, but it's not just disappointment that weighs on him. It's the undeniable feeling that something bigger is happening here. As he steps out into the street, his mind starts to race. It's not just about an apartment anymore. It's about something far more personal. Something inside him shifts, and as he walks away, a seed of determination is planted. This moment, this rejection, is just the beginning. A new fire is ignited within him. The old path of simply looking for a place to live is over. Now something bigger is on the horizon, something unimaginable, something that will change everything. The young man's footsteps echo through the empty streets, each one heavier than the last. He's been to several buildings today, his heart still set on finding a place to call home, but each time he's been turned away, rejected without reason. His hope is slowly slipping away, and with every door that closes, a part of him feels smaller. He walks into another building, a modern-looking complex, hoping for a better outcome. He's greeted by a middle-aged woman at the front desk who smiles at first, but quickly shifts to a cold, professional tone. "Woman, landlord. Sorry, the apartment's already been rented." "Young man, but I just saw the listing online. Are you sure?" "Yes, I'm sure. It's gone." The young man stands there, frozen for a moment. He glances at the "For Rent" sign outside, feeling a pang of disbelief, but he nods quietly, accepting the rejection with as much grace as he can muster. It's another dead end. A few blocks away, he enters another building, this time an older, quieter building. The landlord, a man in his late 50s, gives him a look that seems to scan him from head to toe. There's an uncomfortable pause before he speaks. "You're not looking for a one-bedroom, are you?" "Yes, I'm looking for a one-bedroom. There was a listing online. We don't rent to your type." The words hit him like a slap in the face. The young man's eyes widen with shock, but the landlord's expression doesn't change. It's like he's heard this line before, like this is just part of the process. The young man's heart sinks as he struggles to process what just happened. Later that day, he walks into yet another building, a hopeful look in his eyes as he approaches the front desk. This time, a younger man, who appears to be in his 30s, smiles at him at first. But the smile fades quickly. "Landlord, sorry, we don't have any apartments available right now." Young man, "But I called earlier, and the listing said there was one open. Can I at least—" Landlord, cutting him off, "I don't have time for this. You're wasting mine. I told you, no apartments." The rejection stings even more now. It's not just the denial of a place to live. It's the cold, dismissive tone, the refusal to even offer a bit of kindness or understanding. With each no, with each brush-off, the young man's sense of dignity begins to erode. He's not just being rejected for his financial situation, he's being rejected for who he is. we see a montage of other rejections, more landlords, more dismissive glances, more reasons why he's not good enough. Each interaction leaves its mark. His frustration grows, but so does his determination. Every no becomes a fire in his chest. He starts keeping a record, dates, times, names of landlords, and their excuses. He's been told the place is taken. We don't rent to your type, and this building isn't for people like you. With each rejection, his resolve strengthens. He won't be a victim. He won't let this go. By the time the sun sets, he's exhausted, both physically and emotionally. He stands in front of yet another building, staring up at the windows that mock him. It's not just about apartments anymore. It's not about finding a place to live. It's about a system that has rejected him again and again, simply because of who he is. The young man's face hardens. There's a look of quiet fury in his eyes. He doesn't know what comes next, but he knows one thing for sure. He will not be broken by this. The young man sits alone on a bench in a quiet park, his shoulders slumped, his mind far away. The day has been long, full of rejection, and he's mentally and emotionally drained. His phone rests in his hand, its screen displaying another apartment listing that's well beyond his budget. The world around him seems to move in fast forward. People walk by carrying boxes and suitcases, laughing and talking as they move into buildings that just hours ago he was turned away from. He watches a family walk into a building he had just visited earlier that day. The landlord had smiled at them, offered them the keys, and wished them well, but when it was his turn, he was dismissed with cold words and judgment. The weight of it all presses down on him as he stares at the happy faces of the family, their lives moving forward while his own feels stuck. "Young man," whispers to himself, "what am I doing wrong? Why is it so hard to just live, to have a place to call my own?" For a moment he feels lost, like all of his efforts are in vain. He's exhausted from fighting a battle he can't win. But then something shifts inside him. As he looks at the moving family, something clicks, a thought, a realization. Instead of continuing to fight individual landlords, why not fight the system that's causing all this pain? He's been trying to fit into a system that doesn't want him. But what if he doesn't need to fit in? What if he can create his own path? The young man's eyes light up with determination as the idea takes root. No longer is he focused on finding an apartment. His mind races with the thought of taking control, not just of his own situation, but of the system that's been pushing him down. He's tired of waiting, tired of hoping that someone will offer him a chance. It's time to take matters into his own hands. He's going to buy a building. A sudden surge of energy floods through him as he stands up from the bench. The anger he's been holding inside, anger at the discrimination, the constant rejections, the judgment transforms into motivation. His focus sharpens. The world around him fades as he starts walking with purpose. Cut to a montage of late nights spent at his computer, researching real estate, reading articles, and watching YouTube videos about property investments. The young man's mind is absorbing everything he can, every piece of knowledge about the market, about the legalities of property ownership, about what it takes to buy a building. He begins calculating the costs, looking at financing options, and creating a budget. In one scene, we see him in his cramped apartment, sitting at his kitchen table surrounded by papers, his laptop open in front of him. His eyes are bloodshot, but there's a fire in them. He's researching properties, comparing prices, checking out loans. He writes down numbers, analyzes them, and crosses out mistakes. He doesn't stop. The hours pass by, but he's determined. He knows this is the only way forward. Over time, we see the young man make sacrifices. He starts cutting back on unnecessary expenses, focusing solely on saving money for a down payment. He works extra hours at his job, taking on side gigs when he can. He's building his future $1 at a time, and although it's hard, he's focused. Every setback becomes a learning opportunity. Every small victory, a step closer to his goal. The young man's research continues, but now his vision expands beyond just buying a single apartment. He begins to look at entire buildings for sale, large apartment complexes that could generate enough income to support not only him, but but others who have been discriminated against. He starts to think big. If he can't find a home in this city, why not create a place where others can find refuge, free from judgment? He starts contacting real estate agents, attending seminars, and even meeting with potential investors. He is no longer the passive victim in this story. He's taking control of his future, and he's determined to make it happen. One evening, as he sits at his desk, looking at a building listing that he's considered for weeks, he makes a decision. His hand hovers over the keyboard as he types out an email to a realtor. "I'm ready to make an offer." There's no turning back now. The plan is in motion. After months of relentless work, the young man stands in front of his mirror, dressed in a crisp shirt and pants, ready to take a step he never thought possible. The reflection staring back at him is different, more confident, more determined. His journey, filled with setbacks and challenges, has led him to this moment. He's no longer just a man looking for an apartment. He's about to become the owner of a building, a player in the game he once thought was out of his reach. The camera cuts to a quiet evening in his apartment. The piles of research papers and real estate documents are now neatly stacked, and his desk is cleaned save for a few important files. He takes a deep breath as he holds his phone, dialing the number of the realtor he's been in contact with. His heart races, but he's calm on the outside. This is it. This is the moment where his life takes a turn. The young man steps into the office of the real estate agent, the air inside cool and professional. The agent, a middle-aged man in a sharp suit, greets him with a smile, but there's a slight tension in the air. The young man can't help but feel the weight of the decision ahead. He's about to walk into a world that's been closed off to him for so long, but today he's ready. The agent explains the details of the building he's interested in, walking him through the price, the condition of the property, and the paperwork involved. Every word seems to echo in the young man's ears, but he listens intently, absorbing everything. As the conversation continues, the young man's nerves begin to settle. He's prepared for this. He's worked for months, saved every penny, researched tirelessly, and fought every step of the way to get here. He nods confidently, finally saying the words that will change everything. "Young man, I'm ready. Let's do it." The next few minutes are a blur of paperwork, legal jargon, and signatures. The young man's hand shakes slightly as he signs each page, but there's no doubt in his mind. This is the right decision. This is his future. As the realtor hands him the final paper, the one that officially makes him the owner of the building, his heart skips a beat. His dream is no longer a distant hope. It's real. The camera focuses on his hand as he holds the signed documents, his fingers trembling slightly as he feels the weight of the moment. The journey that began with rejection, frustration, and pain has led him here to this powerful moment of triumph. Then the realtor reaches into his desk drawer and pulls out a small set of keys. The young man's eyes lock onto them. These keys, once a symbol of something he was denied, are now his. He takes them in his hand, his fingers curling around the metal, feeling the cool weight of them. The camera focuses on the keys in his hand, capturing the significance of this simple object. It's not just a set of keys, it's the symbol of his victory, of everything he's fought for. The camera lingers on his face as he smiles, a quiet but powerful moment of realization washing over him. Young man to himself softly, "I did it." He stands tall, the keys glinting in his hand, and for the first time in a long time, he feels truly free. The building that once rejected him is now his to own, and in that moment the possibilities seem endless. His journey isn't over, but this is a defining moment, his moment. The camera pulls back, showing him standing there with the keys in his hand, his future open before him. The young man takes a deep breath, stepping out of the realtor's office and into the world of property ownership. No longer just a man who was rejected, he's now the one in control. The world is his to shape. He walks into the building where it all began, the place that had rejected him so many times. He's not the same man who had left in frustration before. There's a new confidence in his steps, a sense of power that wasn't there before. His hand clenches the keys in his pocket, feeling the weight of the building he now owns. He enters the landlord's office, the same one he had been dismissed from months ago. The landlord, a middle-aged man with a smug expression, sits behind his desk, his fingers drumming absent-mindedly. He looks up, expecting another tenant to show up, perhaps another one to be turned away. But when he sees the young man standing in front of him, something shifts. "Landlord, what do you want now?" The young man stands tall, a slight but firm smile on his face. There's no trace of the nervousness or uncertainty that had once clouded his demeanor. He speaks with calm authority. "Young man, I'm here to see you, and I've got some news for you." The landlord looks him up and down, his expression shifting from confusion to disbelief. He's not sure what's happening. Maybe it's a joke, maybe this is some strange twist of fate, but he's not prepared for what's coming next. "Landlord, news? What kind of news?" The young man pulls out the stack of papers, the ownership documents, the proof of his purchase. He places them on the desk, his hand resting on them for a moment. The landlord squints at the documents, his confusion growing. The moment is electric, charged with a feeling of impending justice. The young man leans forward slightly, his voice steady and controlled, but the words hit like thunder. "Young man, I'm your new boss now. I own this building." The words land with a heavy impact, and the landlord freezes. He stares at the young man, his expression turning pale as he tries to process what's just been said. His smugness falters. The shock is palpable. The young man watches the landlord's reaction, his calmness almost eerie in the face of such an immense shift in power. The landlord's hands tremble slightly as he reaches out to grab the papers, his eyes darting between the young man and the documents. The young man gives him a moment to comprehend the full weight of the situation before speaking again, his tone decisive and unwavering. "Young man, you've been fired, and as of today, you're also evicted." The landlord's face goes completely pale, his eyes widen with panic. He opens his mouth, but no words come out. The reality is settling in like a slow-moving storm. The very building that had rejected him is now under his control, and the man who had looked down on him is now the one who is powerless. The landlord stumbles back, his hands shaking as he tries to gather his thoughts. But it's clear, there's nothing he can do. He tries to argue, tries to find an excuse, but the young man isn't interested in excuses anymore. He's done with the injustice. Landlord, voice shaking, "You can't do this. This is my building. I built this place." "Young man, you built it by denying people like me the chance to have a home. I'm not here to play by your rules anymore. This is my building now." The young man watches as the landlord's face contorts in disbelief, but there's no sympathy in his eyes. The tables have turned, and the young man has finally taken control. The landlord stands up, trying to regain some sense of composure, but it's too late. The power has shifted, and he's no longer the one in charge. The young man takes one last look at the landlord before turning and walking out of the office. He leaves the man standing there, helpless and defeated. As he walks down the hallway, the camera lingers on his back, showing his steady, determined stride. He has won. He has taken control of the building that once rejected him, and in doing so, he has won not just for himself, but for everyone who's been discriminated against, dismissed, and ignored. Justice has been served. The young man stands at the entrance of the building he now owns, the keys still resting in his pocket. It's early morning, and the city around him is starting to wake up. He watches as people walk in and out of the building, some with bags in hand, others smiling and laughing. This is no longer just a building, it's a symbol of change, of opportunity. He's no longer the hopeful man searching for an apartment. He's the one offering people a chance. As he walks through the building's halls, he greets each of the tenants with a warm smile. These aren't just renters to him. They're people who've been given a space to thrive, free from judgment. They remind him of who he was when he first stepped into this world, looking for a place to call home. The camera cuts to a young woman, a single mother with her child, as she walks into her new apartment. She's been rejected time and time again, turned away because of her background, her ethnicity. But today, things are different. Today, she's handed the keys to a space that's all her own. She walks through the door, her eyes scanning the rooms, her child already running to claim their new space. The woman looks out the window, a tear slipping down her cheek as she smiles. This is her fresh start, a place where she and her child can build a new life, free from the discrimination they once faced. Cut to a young man, similar in age to the protagonist, moving into his new apartment. He had struggled for years to find a place to live, always facing rejection because of his race and background. But now, he's not just moving into a building, he's walking into a space where he's welcomed, where he belongs. He pauses in the doorway, taking a deep breath. The weight of his past struggles seems to lift for a moment as he takes in the sight of the room. This is the beginning of something new for him. He's not just another tenant. He's a part of something bigger, something that's been built with purpose and heart. Later that evening, the young man sits in his office, the soft hum of the building's tenants in the background. He reflects on his journey, on the frustration, pain, and rejection that once consumed him. He's come so far, but it wasn't just for him. It was for everyone who'd been denied a fair chance. Young man, softly to himself, "What they did to me, it didn't break me. It made me stronger. And now I can give that strength to others." He looks out the window, watching the lights flicker on in the apartments below. This building, once a symbol of his pain and rejection, has become a symbol of hope, opportunity, and justice. He's created a safe space for people who've been discriminated against, who've been rejected, who've been made to feel small. In a world that tried to shut them out, he's opened the door. The camera lingers on the tenants as they move in and out, living their lives with a newfound sense of freedom. They aren't just renters, they're thriving, they're building futures, and they're paying it forward. One by one, the young man's actions have created a ripple effect, changing lives in ways that are hard to measure, but the impact is undeniable. The young man stands outside, looking up at the building that now holds so much meaning. He thinks back to the days when he was turned away, when he was judged simply for who he was. He knows that what he's built isn't just a building, it's a safe haven, a place where people can finally breathe, where they don't have to fight for the right to exist. The camera pulls back, showing the young man standing tall in front of the building. He's not just a landlord, he's a symbol of resilience, strength, and hope. What began with a dream to have a place of his own has transformed into something much greater, a legacy that will empower others for years to come. The young man stands in front of the building, the late afternoon sun casting a golden glow across the facade. He's dressed in simple clothes, but there's a weight to him now, a quiet strength. He looks up at the building, his eyes softening as he takes it all in. It's more than just a structure of brick and mortar. It's the manifestation of his journey, his struggles, his victories. This building, once a place of rejection and pain, has transformed into something far more powerful. It stands as a symbol of resilience, justice, and the unyielding will to overcome. Every brick, every window, every floor tells the story of how far he's come. He thinks back to the moment when everything changed, the day he walked into the landlord's office, full of hope, only to face rejection because of who he was. That moment stung deeply, but it also ignited something in him, something that pushed him to rise above the hatred and prejudice. He realizes now that without that rejection, he might not have fought so hard. Without that pain, he might not have found the strength to change the system. Young man whispering to himself, that rejection, it made me better. It made me stronger. He reflects on the many tenants who now live in the building, people who faced the same struggles he once did, the same judgment, the same discrimination. His journey isn't just about him anymore. It's about everyone who's ever been told they didn't belong, who's ever been looked down on because of who they are. This victory isn't just for him, it's for them too. It's for anyone who's ever been denied their dignity, their respect. As he stands there, a new sense of purpose fills him. This isn't the end of his journey, it's just another chapter. He has fought the fight, and now he's helping others do the same. Later that evening, the young man stands in front of the gathered tenants, all of them looking up at him with respect and gratitude. He feels a sense of pride, but also humility. These people have become part of his story, just as he's become part of theirs. He takes a deep breath, looking out at the faces in the crowd, each one carrying their own stories of hardship and triumph. The words he speaks now are not just for them, they're for anyone who's ever faced adversity. Young man, I want you all to know something. When I first walked into this building, I was rejected. But that rejection didn't define me. It didn't stop me. It only made me want to fight harder. And now I'm standing here in front of all of you with something we can all call home. He pauses, allowing the weight of his words to settle in the air. Young man with conviction. No matter what life throws at you, no matter how many doors are slammed in your face, don't give up. There's always a way. If I can rise above, so can all of you. This building, it's not just a place to live, it's a symbol that no matter how hard life gets, you can always turn your pain into power. The camera pans across the faces of the tenants, their eyes reflecting the hope and strength that the young man's words have inspired. The young man smiles softly, feeling the weight of his journey lift slightly. He knows this is the beginning of something greater, not just for him, but for everyone who steps into this building. As the sun sets behind him, casting a warm glow on the building's exterior, he turns and walks inside, ready to face whatever comes next. His journey is far from over, but he knows that with every step, he's paving the way for others to follow. The camera lingers on the building, the young man's figure fading into the doorway, symbolizing that even in the face of adversity, there is always a way forward. The building stands tall, a beacon of hope for everyone who's ever been told they didn't belong, a reminder that no matter the odds, there is always a way to rise above. The scene shifts to the young man standing alone outside the building, his eyes gazing out at the horizon. The sky is painted with hues of orange and pink as the sun dips below the skyline. His posture is strong, his expression thoughtful but hopeful. There's a sense of calm confidence in the air, the calm that comes with knowing you've made a real difference. But this isn't the end. He's ready to keep going. As the camera pulls back, the young man's figure becomes smaller, but his presence remains powerful. His journey may have started with rejection and pain, but it's now a story of change, strength, and opportunity. He knows that what he's created is just the beginning. There's so much more to do, so many more people to help, and so many systems to challenge. Narrator voice. Young man's voice or narrator's voice. This journey didn't just change my life. It's about all of us. We all have the power to challenge the systems that perpetuate hate and discrimination. It's not just about fighting in big, dramatic ways. It's the small actions that matter too. Every time we support one another, every time we stand up to injustice, we're creating change. The camera lingers on his face, showing a flicker of determination behind his eyes. Narrator voice, Cantide. The world is full of opportunities. We just have to fight for them. We need to lift each other up, challenge the systems that divide us, and create spaces where everyone can thrive. Because change doesn't just happen. It's made, and it starts with us. As the video nears its end, we see the young man walking away from the building, the camera following his every step. His path is uncertain, but his determination is unwavering. He knows that as long as he continues to challenge the status quo, there's always hope. His journey is far from over, and with every step he takes, He's paving the way for a better future, for himself and for everyone around him. The screen fades to black with bold, impactful text appearing. Stand up, speak out, change the system. Narrator voice, final words. The fight against racism is ongoing. Will you be part of the change? The video ends on a powerful note, urging the audience to take action, to challenge the systems that perpetuate injustice, and to be part of the solution. The young man's journey is a reminder that change is possible, and it starts with the small, everyday actions we take to make the world a better place.